Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 50th Stately Office Hours, complete with music. This is where us, the team at Stately, talk to you about what's been going on with XState and the Stately tools, what we've been working on. We answer your questions and love to get your feedback as well. And I can't believe that we have done 50 of these. It's been over a year. We haven't missed that many. I think we've done pretty well.
We
And
have, yeah.
so we're really glad to have you all here joining us today. It's a bit of a party, a bit of a fun. So let's start off with, as we do every week. If you've been to the other 49, you'll know this is how we start. Let's have everyone introduce themselves. So I will go first, and I'm Laura, and I do advocacy for Stately. Next up, Fazad.
Farzad here, based in Helsinki, Finland. I do engineering at Stately.
And David with the groovy hat.
Yeah, I'm David. I'm the founder of Stately, creator of XState, and currently QA engineer.
And Mateusz.
I'm a software engineer at Stately, working on open source tools and a question giver for fun JavaScript trivia.
It's true.
And Anders, or Indiana
Hello.
Jones.
I'm Anders. I'm a thinker of software here at Stately.
And Kevin.
I'm Kevin, working on software and some upcoming features.
And right down at the bottom of the screen today, last but not least, Nick.
I'm Nick of Chicago, and I work on product design here at State.
So we're pretty close to a full complement this week, and it's great to have all of the team here. Let's get straight into it with some demos. But what I'll say quickly first is, folks, if you have any questions that you want to ask us during the stream, just let us know on Twitch or on YouTube in the comments. We'll get those through automatically, or you can ask us on Twitter or in our Discord, and I'll keep an eye out for those. Oh, LinkedIn as well. If you like a bit of LinkedIn, I'll have a look. So everyone loves demos, so we can't have an office hours without a demo. And Fazad, will you get us started with what you've been working on this week? It's really cool.
Yeah, of course. Let me try to figure out how to share my screen for the third time. And there we go. So I'm going to demo this from my local host. If things break down, just expect that. This is the new design that Nick came up with, and Anders implemented most of it last week, I guess, or the week before that. And I think we saw a demo of the new design at some point in one of the office hours. But what I worked on was this little right sidebar here. So you traditionally used to see like a fixed right sidebar here that got like all the space till here on the right side. But now we moved that to something that's kind of like floating on top of the whole canvas. It's not floating, it's fixed, but just imagine that as floating. Where you see different options based on the mode of the editor you're in. So if you're in the edit mode, you would see three different options. One of them would be the one that you see the details or the forms of anything that is on the canvas right now. So by default, if nothing is selected, you will see the details of the machine that you're creating. And if you select a state, you will see the details of the state, like the key and the type. You usually used to see that on the right side, but we just pulled it here. And it keeps the scroll in, so it has like a max height, so it's not too annoying to work with because this is a pop-over element, so it might get in your way if it didn't handle those things. And so everything is here for the state. And if you click on an event and select that, you will see the form that is specifically for this transition. And if nothing is selected again, you will see the details of the machine. The second option would be the context of the machine. And we did the demo for the context and assignment actions before, but we just moved that here and we moved this key value pair at the end that helps you create a new field in the context of the machine. And you can also switch to raw mode and get back to the table mode. And if context is also long enough, we will keep it in a reasonable layout here. The third option, which is something new, is the JSON view. So we used to have a little export button here, but we kind of moved that here as JSON view because we're gonna start adding more. I'm not gonna call it views, but like different export options to the machine. So soon you should be able to export to JavaScript, to TypeScript, and to JSON, whereas before we just had the export to JSON option. And you would see that this is the configuration, JSON configuration of the machine that we have here in the diagram. And if you copy that to clipboard, you can paste it in the visualizer, or you can paste it in your code, use it in your React components, or however you're using it, in your project. And let's just try to maybe edit something here. Let's change from plain to idle and see if that updates. If it doesn't, I'm going to be ashamed. Yeah, it does. Okay, so it's cool. Something that I'm really proud of is this text area that is read-only. So you can select all. Instead of selecting everything on the canvas, you just select the text. This is very clever. I'm very proud of this. But you can also go on and copy the clipboard from here. So it's not super useful. It's just additional nice to have feature. Besides that, if you go to the simulation mode, for now you only see one of the options, which is the event log. And if you start playing around with with the machine, you would see that it would continue adding all the events that you have here. Right now, my machine doesn't have any sort of connectivity between the states, no event. There is no kind of like connecting transition between the states right now. But this is exactly the same as the event log that you used to see before in the visual editor. So we didn't change anything. We just kept it under this option here. I believe that is it.
Yeah.
Am I missing anything?
In the future, we'll warn you about like, hey, you can't really transition anywhere right now because there's no initial state. But yeah.
I don't know. This is a valid state machine, David. Stay out of people's machines.
All right. What do I
No
know?
state machine judgment here.
Yeah. All right. I think that's it. Yeah. So not much, but good
No,
stuff.
that's a lot. It looks amazing. It's really cool. I'm really looking forward to seeing more and more of Nick's designs getting brought into the editor because there's some really cool stuff going on there.
Yeah, Nick's brilliant.
Yeah. And like Nick could probably talk a lot more about this, but one of our main goals for the editor is we want things to be less, clustered and more infinite canvas like, so that you really have an infinite playing room for like just moving things around and having things closer to the actual elements, which is why I really like that idea of having floating panels and eventually having things closer to the states and events. I love the look of it though.
Yeah, I think especially if you're on a big screen as well, if you've got things right at the sides, they can feel like they're very far away.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have some questions that I wanted to ask the rest of you. So we do have Ask Us Anything today, folks, if you have any questions for us. But I wanted to start off with, now obviously Farzad mentioned that he's incredibly proud that you can select all inside of the code editor and the context. But I wanted to ask everyone, what's one thing that you've worked on at Stately that has made you most proud? Anyone want to go first? Or I can go first, and then I will pick you all individually. So I'll go first. One thing I'm most proud of is the little introduction that I did to state machines and state charts. Because for some reason, having a little puppy dog and going through the different states of a dog really caught people's imagination and helped them learn how to use state machines and state charts. And given that that is really the core thing that I'm trying to focus on working with Stately, is trying to make everything easy to understand, I feel like I achieved that in that instance. So let's go around as we did with the intros. Farzad, what about you? Not select all.
Why am I always first? I'm going to say all the features that we worked on collectively on the visual diagram, I love them all because I love the product. And the fact that it empowers anybody in the team to contribute to the logic that I'm creating for the visual editor, it's just super powerful. And I love that. So yeah, that's my answer.
I'm going to keep going around one by one, but if someone wants to jump in first so that nobody else steals what your one is, you can go for it. David, how about you? I mean, it's a lot of options to go for, given that this is your baby.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm most proud of, and of course proud of the team for doing, is it's not really on the technical side. It's more on the side of just showing the editor and the studio to someone who's non-technical and having them able to understand it and play around with it. And I've done that with a few people so far, and also even developers when they play around with the editor for the first time, and at first they're like, oh yeah, this is interesting, and then eventually they say, hey, I've gotten hooked. And that has happened at least twice. Even in React Finland, Farzad was there and Jenny was there. They could tell you. And honestly, that's such a magical moment for me. Like just realizing, okay, these tools are actually really powerful and really helpful, and they do change the way that you think about, modeling your application logic. So that's something that I'm most proud of.
And how about you, Mateusz? Is it something open source related, perhaps?
Yeah, I'm just a big nerd, so I guess that would be typegen machinery, like this whole plumbing between typegen and XState. That took a lot of work and exploration and bending TypeScript to its limits. So, and even diving into the compiler itself. So yeah, that was a roller coaster ride.
I think a lot of people really appreciate how it works as well. How about you, Anders? I mean, both you, Kevin, and Nick have all been with us for less time, but you've all achieved a huge amount in that time.
I would say, as the parts the user can see, I'm most proud of having implemented Nick's awesome upcoming design in the editor. I mean, it's been a pleasure to work on, and the editor feels like a totally different animal by now. And if you ask me in a year again, maybe at episode 100, it's hopefully gonna be something about maybe connecting your machines in a transient way. Let's see. We have some interesting stuff brewing internally.
Absolutely. Kevin, how about you?
Well, let's talked a little bit about working on some of the upcoming pro features related to teams and collaboration, and I really love working on that kind of thing because for example, I love working on this team, and I love the idea of collaborating together. So what I'm working on is going to empower other users to work together and to augment each other's skills and abilities and design. And I think that's super exciting to work on.
Totally. Yeah. This is what I love about it as well. I love working with all of you. It's so much fun, and I learn so much from you all the time. And Nick, how about you? Now, I guess you've kind of been with us the least amount of time, but in terms of impact, the design's already having a huge impact, as you know from what Anders said.
Yeah, I mean, yes. I mean, most of my work so far has been future facing and mostly not out yet. But like, I'd say as far as what I'm most proud of so far, kind of getting figuring out a scaffolding for everything that we want to do. Like you saw a bit of a preview of it today. That's just, of course, a rough draft for the first step. We have a lot of plans after this. And I'm especially proud of like this direction we have for how we're going to be able to show different views of states. Like that in particular, I'm very excited about. So.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that makes Nick such a fantastic designer, is that this is not talking about superficial surface details kind of design. We're talking about proper systems thinking, how it works, everything becomes more learnable and easy to use. It's going to make such a massive difference. I'm really excited about how it's looking. Can't wait to share this with the rest of you. You're going to be so excited when you get your hands on the new design as well. It's going to be brilliant.
We have 2 more people not here that I don't want to speak for them, but some of the things that I'm really proud of, like what they've been doing. We have Jenny on the team, who has been in endless user reviews, and she's really the person who's making sure that we're building what users want, and she just talks to everyone. I'm sure she's talked to hundreds of you all so far. So just her immense amount of research and dedication to just figuring out what users want. It's super, super helpful. And also Gavin, who's not here, he is our backend wizard. He has been cooking up some, like next year, it's going to look really, really, really awesome. But we have some big plans for state machines on the server, basically. So basically workflow automation and things like that. And he has an immense amount of knowledge there. So I'm really excited to, I guess next year, maybe in office hours number 100, share what we've been planning with that. So.
Yeah, and Cedric asks how many people work at Stately today. And that would be all of us. So that's the 9 of us. Thank you, Farzad. For me, who can't count.
I'm trying to make it accessible, you know.
I love it. Okay, I have a fun question to ask everyone, and I'd love to know if you're watching us live. Let us know in the comments your thoughts as well. What's the one code editor extension you couldn't live without? Now, see, I would say VS Code extension, and of course, everyone would say Xstate, but I know that not everyone uses VS Code, and there's probably other extensions that you can't live without as well. So who wants to go first?
Prettier.
Prettier.
Prettier is just such a lifesaver. Yeah, I can't even imagine like going into a project without it. I had this pleasure of going into one recently, and it was like, why Prettier is not configured here? Why I'm wasting so many like mental ticks on this stuff.
Prettier has had such an impact on the entire community that whenever I'm trying to, you know, just write a comment on GitHub, I'm expecting Prettier to be there. It's like I'm totally biased that Prettier is living everywhere. Yeah, but I'm gonna second that. Prettier is the one that I can't live without because it's super annoying to not have it.
I will say that I'm gradually, just getting dependent on Copilot. And at first I was like, oh man, it's just generating code based on other people's code. Who knows if that code is going to be correct? But the thing is, it understands like what I'm writing in a file. And so especially when I'm doing a lot of repetitive stuff, like in algorithms, it will just, understand what I'm trying to do and do it for me. It's really, really getting smarter in a scary way. And it's pretty magical.
Anyone else got one?
I'd say for me, I mean, we have a comment about Vim being the best extension. I mean, I love switching between my editors, and Vim being one of them. But if we're talking VS Code, my favorite extension, besides Xstate, of course, is GitLens Plus, because it enables me to quickly get like an idea of why is this code the way it is, and go hunting through pull requests and figure out, I mean, basically why things are the way they are before making changes, which is, I find, very helpful.
You know, Anders, you just recently mentioned GitLens, and I have to explore some of those tabs because there's so many of them. But even the more basic, GitHub integration, for creating pull requests and reviewing and seeing comments and things like that, I think it's really useful. It saves time having to go back and forth between your editor and your browser. So I really love that too.
Yeah, I'm writing all these down on the side. I mean, the ones that aren't already incorporated into our developer environment. Like, what do I need to try out? Because I don't even use the Git integration inside of the code editor at the moment. I've been using Terminal for that for a long time. So I am really old school. But then I remember when I used to write code in just a text editor, and the idea of using Prettier and things like that was just another level. I could not even imagine doing it. Probably one of my favorite ones is I like the one that highlights the colors that you're using in CSS. It's really useful when you're designing to just be able to get a quick idea of what the color is, because I can't read hex codes or RGB values. And so it's a really useful one that comes in handy all the time. It's very simple. How about you, Nick? Do you have any faves?
Definitely Prettier. I mean, I remember just whenever it came out, and like the before and after, it just completely changed the quality of life for JavaScript developers. I mean, and it's like not even just for making sure the code's standardized among, all the contributors, but I use it for quickly evaluating code that I'm writing. Like I just have like the key combo to run it be second nature, and I'll just run it, not even to format it, but just to quickly test to make sure this is going to run.
Yeah. But that's it. I think stopping developers arguing about whether they're going to use tabs or spaces and things like that is really cuts out a huge amount of arguing time out of the process.
They still argue on that, but they have isolated the argument on the Prettier config, not the entire project.
Yes, and that's an accessibility issue as well. That's quite an interesting one if you want to get into it. Probably not for right now. So Okay, I've got another question for the rest of you. What's the most impressive state chart you've ever built? I've built quite a cool one recently, which actually works through all of the different features of a state chart. So I'm quite looking forward to sharing that with the rest of you.
Nice.
I'm going to say the most impressive state chart I've ever written was way before I joined Stately, actually. It was because before Stately and the new docs and the new shiny tools, Exastate was kind of like a black magic that you had to learn it, but you had to find your own adventure to learn it. There was, the docs were, I'm sorry to say this, David, live, but docs were horrible. And yeah, and I remember that I was spamming David on Twitter and asking him, what does this mean? What does that mean? And he pretended to like me and answered me. But the state chart that I built at that time was our Helsinki transportation system. They introduced something called zones that we have in most of the other European cities, where you have to pay a different fee for the tickets that you're using on the transportation system if you're in different zones. And if you cross a zone, you have to be careful that you have the right tickets for it. Otherwise, you're going to be fined for like 200 euros or something. So I created an application to use the HSL API here in Helsinki to detect your geolocation API using the web APIs and notify you if you're crossing the zones to check your ticket. And I use the state chart for watching the geolocation, getting the notification permissions and everything. There's a lot of things that can go wrong on such a small progressive web application. And I used my first state chart there, which used history states, parallel states, and all the cool stuff in Exastate. And I remember we were at a conference and I was trying to get the last piece done, but I couldn't get it correctly. And we were at Holy.js with David in Russia, and he helped me get that right in person. So it was finished there, and it was amazing. It was such a great state chart.
That's great. It must have a huge impact on a lot of people as well. So like doubly impressive in that sense.
You would imagine people use it, but nobody uses it. So
shh, don't tell anyone that.
Anyway, the tech was cool.
Yeah. Anyone else have a particularly impressive state chart they want to show? Anyone in the comments? We've got Angelo said, my most impressive charts have been the worst ones I've made. Did way too much. I once reinvented the concept of URIs and URLs. We've all been there.
Back when I was at Microsoft, I had to model baggage cart handlers, so the things that take your luggage from the airports to the plane. And it was a pretty simple state chart at the time, but the impressive thing about it was that you could have many of these carts, like just receiving commands like, hey, you have to pick up this bag and go here, and also find the shortest path. Like if you want to deliver it to these two planes, then deliver it to this one first and then this one. And so long story short, I was able to create an army of state charts. So basically a simulation, and actually visualize that simulation. So I had those little baggage cart, like I used a truck as an emoji, but it was going through Google, well, it was Microsoft, so Bing Maps. It was going through Bing Maps, and you could see them just moving around the airport, and it was really fun. And so that's when I realized, like, wow, there's lots of possibilities to Exastate.
That is so cool.
I'd say
currently. You go first,
ahead.
Anders.
Okay. Well, currently I'm helping a friend build a website for his bakery. So he does like local bread, and I'm building this ordering system for him where you can order certain types of products on Sundays, and you can order other types of products only on every second Friday, and stuff like that. So quite complex logic, but I've managed to squeeze it in a fairly small state machine, which is working really nice. And I'm actually trying to build this in the open. So, I mean, everybody is welcome to go follow that repository if they want to. I'm not sure if we can share.
It is. It is github.com/Melson/Leanders. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, Leanders is pretty accurate. So this is launching in November, but feel free to follow along. Some bits are in Danish, and I mean, you're welcome to DM me on Discord if you want to know some specifics about the code.
That's really cool. I'm looking forward to seeing that one. In the comments, General Sal said, I built Canary deployment workflow. That was pretty fun. That sounds cool. And Martin said, I still like the one I made for opening and closing a door with a lock and handle. that I use to visualize an actual object as a state machine. That's a really cool idea. I think that would be a really great way to help teach state machines to people as well, for sure. And Cedric says the most impressive chart when you're a parent and working from home is the one done when the children are at home. Well, there's some parents here that would understand that for sure. So I think we should share some more exciting stuff that is up and coming. David, do you want to let us know a little bit about the future of XState?
Yeah, sure. So there was a comment here, release date for V5 for the 50th, right? Not exactly. We're still working on it slowly. We have bigger priorities right now, but that doesn't mean that we're not working on it. And more importantly, we are working on it in terms of just a lot of PRs and also RFCs. So I have a couple of things to share. These are the things that currently I'm most excited about, but there's a lot of other things that we have planned for XState. So first of all, as you know, with XState, you could interpret a machine. That's sort of one of the main points of XState, is that it's used to create state machines and state charts, but it also implements an actor model. And so that's why in version 5, we're going to make interpreting many other things like promises, observables, reducers, and callbacks first-class citizens. And so what this means is that whereas a state machine is like a first-class citizen, it could send and receive events, it could spawn actors. It's basically the most powerful of all of these things. You shouldn't be forced to write absolutely everything as a state machine, at least not at first. For example, some of your logic might be in a promise or a reducer, or for all other logic that you don't know where it how it could fit neatly into one of these things, a callback might be your best option. So we're going to basically have all of these become interpretable. There was a really, really big PR that Matish has been reviewing a lot, and so I thank him for that. There's still some things for me to clean up in there, but this is coming soon, and so everything is going to be treated the same way. Everything is an actor. Another one I'm excited about is the idea of input and output into a machine. And so currently, if you wanted to input data into a machine, you sort of have to do this awkward with context or create a factory function for the machine. However, in typical workflow engines, they have this notion of input. And so this is going to be a pretty simple change. We're just going to add a data parameter to the initial events that a machine gets, so that instead of having to do the factory stuff or like dot with context, which is unsafe, you could just use input, and then it becomes part of the actual logic of the machine. And so the counterpart to that, of course, is output. And so you might have seen that earlier this year, or maybe it was last year, we introduced wait for. And so that allows you to wait for a certain condition to be true within the machine. That allows you sort of to transform your machines into promises. Now with output, it's basically giving you the resolved promise data, because a machine might be a process that takes input and eventually returns an output. And so we wanted a declarative way to represent that. Currently, the way to represent it right now is by receiving a done event and then reading the data from it. It's not very type safe. It's not very reliable. So that's why I'm excited for discussing input and output and bringing that into XState version 5. Another one that a lot of people are excited about is the receptionist pattern, and it solves the problem of parents-child communication is pretty straightforward. But what if a child wants to communicate with any other arbitrary actor within the same system? Currently, it's pretty hard. You either have to, I forgot I have a pen here. You either have to make it go up here, like send an event here, and then have the parent relay an event here, or you might have to do this multiple times, and it just becomes really awkward to just figure out all these connections. So with the receptionist pattern, actors can register themselves on the system, or the system can register the actors. I have to revise that part of the RFC. And so this means that these actors, like the orange one and the blue one, are registered to the system, and that allows you to basically read them by name from anywhere. And in the current RFC, you could, just register many actors under the same name, which is pretty useful if you have many of the same types of actors. But this is going to simplify communication a lot. You can think of it sort of like React Context, but in a simpler way. I don't know if that's a good way to think about it, but that's just the analogy that came up in my head. And so with that, we also want to branch off from just visualizing state machines, which of course are extremely useful, but a lot of people have been asking, like, how do the different parts of a system relate to each other? Like, what spawns what is communicating with what? And so that's why both in XState and Stately, we're going to be thinking of ways to visualize both the entire actor system, as well as the communication between actors, which is typically called a sequence diagram. And so these kinds of diagrams, we wanted to be automatically generated so that, you don't have to draw them up and, have them not really match what's actually happening in your app. So the point of this is to get full visibility into your app. And this combined with, with being able to interpret pretty much anything means that you could incrementally adopt XState throughout your entire app without having to rewrite a lot of code. You could basically use XState to visualize your entire app logic and see which parts are communicating with what. And trust me, this is going to replace a lot of console logs, at least for me. So I'm pretty excited about the possibilities of just visualizing more things with XState. A lot of these are being discussed in our RFCs. So if you go to github.com/statelyai/RFCs, you could see a number of these, and we're of course going to be adding a lot more, over time. So definitely check it out. Let us know your thoughts on it. And yeah.
Cedric said, wow, all of that, really? The release will be for Christmas for sure.
Oh, that's not even all of it. We have things like higher order guards, partial wildcards for events, many other things. And of course, just trying our hardest to improve the TypeScript experience.
And so aside from what Farzad demoed earlier and what we've been demoing in recent live streams with the studio, is there anything else that you wanted to mention sort of broadly about the future of the studio and what might be coming up soon?
Yeah, so next month we are going to be releasing some major updates to the studio, some of which have been teased. But again, tip of the iceberg, we're working on a lot of stuff. And in the future, we're focusing a lot on team collaboration. So that's why we would love for you to tell us, like, what would make XState and Stately and all of these tools more productive, or help your team become more productive in talking about app logic, sharing app logic, and things like that. So, we have a lot of things planned, such as team collaboration and different sharing options. And, in the future, things like GitHub integrations. And of course, more visual export options like Farzad mentioned. So, yeah.
And if any of you want to vote on those features so that we can decide how to prioritize them, you can go to our Canny board at statelyai.canny.io. There you can upvote on the features, and you'll also get updates when the feature has become in progress and when it's been completed. And I try to link up links to demos and discussions about those features too, so you can find out more about what they are and when they're coming. Now, I have another question that I can ask the rest of you. I think that this is an interesting flip side to the one about the editor. Like Code Editors earlier, what's one thing you think is underappreciated by people in tech? This could be a framework, a library, a concept, an approach, or something, whatever. Aside from, I guess, state machines and state charts. Farzad?
I want to say diagramming.
Yes.
I want to say sleep.
Okay, if you're going down that path, drinking water.
Yes.
One of mine is I wish more people understood the CSS cascade. It's the point of CSS. It's so useful. It's not contrary to modern CSS development. It's a really good thing to know, and it really helps.
Oh, yes. So speaking of, sleep, I would say taking the time to properly plan. Like as developers, we're looking for the easiest way to do things all of the time, but easy doesn't mean simple. Like the easier we make things, it's just going to become harder down the road. It's easy means it's easy to introduce tech debt. And I was talking to Farzad at React Finland about like the only good thing about code that's written very quickly is that it's great for prototypes. That's it. So take your time, plan your code, make sure it's robust.
Yeah, I suppose talking to each other is often underappreciated in tech. Communicating the ideas before you start implementing them for sure.
Exactly.
And I guess the state charts are really useful for that.
Yeah, but I
Well,
would have
of course,
plus
it
one
would-
that is. Oh, sorry, Lara. I was just going to plus one what you're saying about in terms of taking that time and also communicating with the team members. There's something to be said about getting the room together, so to speak. And so even if we can't physically do it, taking that time to kind of sit and just brainstorm, throw out ideas onto something, Canvas, onto a state chart, whatever it is, that's very helpful.
Totally.
Do we have time for another one?
Yeah, go for it.
One thing that I didn't do before I joined Stately, and we did a couple of times at Stately, was pair reviewing, where you pull somebody on a sync call, you try to walk them through your big PRs and changes that you created, talk to them about the decisions that you made, why you made them. And it's so much better and more efficient than asynchronous PR reviews on GitHub or anywhere else. And that it usually helps people to see the entire context of all your changes that you've made and everything. So it works really, really great. Definitely try that in addition to pair programming.
Oh, that's some really good advice. Angelo says, rewriting and re-engineering. The most unimaginable thing is rewriting to some companies. That's true.
I love this one. Sometimes we think like, okay, we have a broken code base. Let's just try to find the bug, and you'll spend hours finding the bug. Sometimes, and it's really a skill to identify these kinds of problems, but sometimes it's just a lot easier to completely rewrite it, because one of two things will happen. Either you will rewrite it and then it'll just work, or you'll rewrite it, and while you're rewriting it, you'll identify what the bug was. And then you're like, okay, maybe I should keep rewriting it, or maybe I should just fix the bug. So I'm definitely in this camp.
Yeah, Scott says 100% agrees. Helps make sure that your code makes sense. Totally. Cedric says the communication and marketing for sure. Office hours is a good example of that. Few projects are doing that. When it's fun as well, I think there's something really fun about being able to work in the open and share what you're working with and benefit from other people's feedback too. It is all part of that communication side of things.
Yeah, many developers don't realize that so much of open source is marketing, really.
Yeah, it's not necessarily what you think of as being marketing. It's not necessarily, you think of it as maybe being something that's quite salesy, but it's just communicating with people. It's a nice form of marketing in itself. It wouldn't be me if I didn't say that accessibility and privacy and in general, respecting the rights of users, that is something that is very much underappreciated in tech.
Mm-hmm.
Florian asks us, I'd love to throw money on some Stately swag. Is it planned? We get this question quite regularly.
Yeah,
me.
We'll have to talk to Jenny. I think it'd be fun to have a store, but otherwise, find us at conferences and we'll just give it to you for free. So
that's the best way to spend your money on a conference ticket instead. Yeah, we're all modeling Stately swag today, I think. A lot of us are. I've gone light mode today. And I thought it would be nice to round up on the question, what's the top of your wish list for the Stately Studio? And so the top of my wish list is for folks who don't consider themselves as developers to be able to jump into the editor and instantly understand what they're doing and be able to make things and feel empowered by it. How about the rest of you? I've stolen the good one,
Yeah,
which I guess is what the people said earlier.
You stole mine, so.
I just want to, shout out again to Nick and a lot of the stuff that I've seen planned. I mean, I just love working on something that looks gorgeous and looks accessible and looks inviting. And so I'm super excited about, continuing to work on everything, the studio and everything.
I think top of my wish list is to see a day where everybody is using the visual editor of Stately, like how they use Figma before the Adobe thing.
We're not going to sell to Adobe. Don't worry.
Yeah, honestly, like to be able to see how the visual editor is being used not only by developers but everybody who wants to ideate or solve a problem is just a dream.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in general, it's my wish that like in the future, whether that's a year or 5 years in the future, pretty much every software development team, when they think like, okay, let's plan this feature or even plan this app, the first place that they would go would be Stately, use that as a drawing board, be like, okay, what are all the features we need? What do we need to model? Let's simulate it, make some edge cases, maybe even generate a prototype, see how all the different things are going to interact with each other, then take that model and just put it in their app. Whether they're using XState or not, I honestly don't care.
Yeah, I think one thing for me is for Stately Studio to kind of help normalize this idea that whenever you're building software, you should be using the form of representation which is most appropriate to the problem at hand. That it doesn't always have to be like text, like lines of text in Vim in an 80 character grid, right? And sometimes it's most appropriate to model it as, say, a state chart and like look at this visually. And not just that, but all like being able to not just have it be a disconnected thing, but be able to switch between these representations and the other ones as well. I think that could be very powerful and very interesting.
Yeah, totally. It's a huge problem to solve as well, as the way that we are working in such isolated little bubbles and sort of siloed types of work. Being able to bring those together would be amazing. With Heart says, editing multiple machines at the same time. I love invoking things, but then have to model it elsewhere.
That's coming soon.
That is coming very soon. Angela said, I'd love it for it to be invisible for people unfamiliar with state charts, just reducers and helpers, and a superpower for those who take the time to state charts.
I completely agree.
Stealing that for marketing in the future.
Yeah, no, I completely agree about this. We don't want to, so state chart, it's sort of a friendliest term. We actually did a little internal experiments, but state machine sounds really intimidating when you ask someone to make a state machine. But when you ask someone to make a flowchart, they're like, oh yeah, it's just boxes and arrows. I could do that. It's basically the same thing. So I really want this too. Don't try to have everyone learn all of the different aspects of a state chart. Rather, just get to drawing boxes and arrows and be productive immediately.
Yeah, and right, so that Cedric said, I would love that the product guy or gal or person will start with the editor to have a good comprehension of the spec. And maybe a plugin with Figma would help with that as well. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that would be really cool. It's every team member being able to use it and feel like it works for them would be great. Well, we have some events coming up. As ever, we're always on the road, it seems, at the moment. Coming up soon, next week, there will be no office hours because I will be in Copenhagen for Design Matters. I think David and Jenny and Kevin are going to be at React Alicante at the same time. And in the middle of October, get booking because David is going to be at React Brussels. So back in Europe again. It's hard to get you out of Europe these days, David.
I might as well move there. I love it so much.
So make sure that you catch us at those events. We'll be talking either directly about Stately and XState related things or adjacent topics for sure. And if you want us to speak at any of your events, please do let us know. If you want to have a fantastic workshop provided by the likes of David and Fazard, that went down very well. So it would be cool for them to do more of those in the future. Did the team have anything else that you wanted to mention on this, our 50th office hours? Doesn't have to be big and meaningful. Just, is there anything I forgot?
I just want to know how many of the people who are watching us right now are watching us for our hats.
They're pretty good. Mine came
I'm
out
here
with
for
Project.
David's hat.
It's actually
Yeah, I think-
it's a virtual hat. I just have a very advanced plugin, so it looks extremely real.
I heard ritual hat.
The dedication of this team is that I'm the one that actually turned up with the hat, and everyone else went and found them. Oh no, to be fair, David did pre-plan as well. He just came in last and didn't get the credit for it.
Exactly.
It's a fun team to be a part of, that's for sure. So I guess without further ado, David, maybe you'd play us out with some music, and we can just let it roll for a few seconds before I end the broadcast.
Oh, I have no idea what to play. I'll just play chords.
So
That's
beautiful.
lovely and gentle. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. This has been a really fun live stream, and we will hope to see you again in a couple of weeks' time. Oh, we'll have so much to share with you then. I can't wait to see you all then. Bye-bye.